Okay, so while we wait, we thought that we should just introduce the rest of the team that will be on the panel discussion for a bit later. So we're going to do that now. Let me share my screen. Great. So I realized that I never introduced myself. So my name is Rebecca Stevenson, and I'm an employee at Umvoto. I'm currently registered for my master's at Stellenbosch University. And I've been here for how long? A year and a half now. Yeah, so I'm going to now introduce you to the rest of the team that's sitting here. And I've got a few questions for them as well to answer. So first we have Annalisa. So Annalisa, would you just like to introduce yourself to everyone? And yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Annalisa Vicenti. I'm a groundwater modeler working at Umvoto. I have about 3 years experience in industry, and yeah, I hope to bring some perspective to this meeting.
Great. Annalisa, if you could do field work or office work for the rest of your life, no in between, which would you choose?
I'd have to choose field work.
Field work.
I wish it was like a ratio of office and field, but this question is just one sort.
And the most important question, does pineapple belong on pizza or not?
I know I'm going to have a lot of people not liking this answer, but I think it belongs on pizza just as much as bananas do.
That's not
There
good.
we go.
Okay. Wow. Thanks, Annalisa. Next we have Gemma Bluff. Jem, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi everybody, I'm Gemma. I've been at Umvoto for 5 years now, and I am a climatologist and environmentalist, and I study at UCT.
Cool. Gemma, if you had to do field work or office work for the rest of your life, which would you choose?
I'd have to go with office work.
That's good. And your question is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a tricky one. I actually wanted to be a few things, from a lawyer to a winemaker to an interior designer, but I went with scientist.
Okay, cool. So next we have Mapusholi Moketi, a junior geologist at Umvoto. We call it Posh. Posh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Mapushuli. I'm a junior geologist and I've been here for 3 years now. I obtained my BSc at the University of Cape Town.
Cool. Posh, if you had to do field or office work, which would you choose?
I would definitely pick being in the office. I think it's more sustainable. As we always get old, we're in our 40 and 50, so yeah, office.
That's true.
Yeah.
And your other question is, what is your most used emoji?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
It's quick and easy, you know, sometimes you don't have to think about what to respond, so just like
Okay.
a thumbs up, yeah.
Good. Okay, next we have Keenan. Keenan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kieran Wolf. I've been at Umvoto for almost 3 years now, as a junior geologist, and I've currently submitted my thesis, my MSc thesis at UWC.
Cool. Keenan, would you choose field work or office work for the rest of your life if you had to?
Definitely the field. There's no way to use them being out in the field.
That's cool. And your question is, what is your go-to karaoke song?
That would be Gwen Stefani on a battle, which was BANANAS.
Good. So next we have Kirsty Gibson, who is currently in the field. Kirsty, I'm not sure if you're online.
I'm here. I made it back.
Good, good. Kirsty's in Hermanus at the moment, doing some field work. Oh, sorry. There we go. That's Kirsty. Would you like to just introduce yourself briefly to everybody?
Sure, I'm Kirsty and I'm a junior hydrogeologist, and I've been working at Umvoto for almost 2 years now. And yeah, I've studied at Rhodes, my undergrad and honors in geology, and then my MSc at UFS. And yeah, that's me.
Great. Kirsty, if you had to only do fieldwork or office work for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Field work, definitely field work.
Good. And your question is, what is the last song that you listened to?
Oh, I'm going to throw someone under the bus here, but I'm with Fahad in the field, and he put on some High School Musical. So I had to listen to Fahad's, I don't know, was number 1, I think. Yeah, so that's what I had to listen to.
Yeah. Shame, it sounds like you're having a tough time in the field.
Yeah,
No, that's good.
I did sing along to like a few lines, I won't lie.
No, that's good.
Anyway.
Cool, thanks, Chris. We'll chat to you a bit later. And lastly, we have Shakira. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Shakira Adams. I'm an intern geologist here for a month and a half. I just submitted my master's at UCT.
Great. What is your choice, field work or office work?
I think I just choose office work. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And your question is, would you rather be able to speak all languages or be able to speak to animals?
Animals.
Animals.
Animals, I think, would have more interesting things to say.
Okay, that's probably. Okay, great. We have not heard from Helen yet. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go straight into the panel discussion. So that's the end slide. So I think we'll put our video back on and okay, great. So how this panel discussion is going to work is it's going to be very informal. We have a set of questions or topics of conversation based off of things that we would have found helpful and also largely the questions that you guys submitted. So yeah, we will be answering those questions as best we can. And again, this is the experiences that we've had, especially as young scientists in the geosciences field. So we will first start off with the topic of limited science. And I think let's start off with, I think part of the reason we had this seminar is just for the realization that there are some real challenges being a woman in science in a largely male-dominated field. So it might be good to start off with exploring some of those challenges and more importantly, how we've found ways to overcome them or to deal with them. So yeah, let's start there. Is there anyone here of the ladies that would like to share maybe some of the challenges that you faced as a woman geoscientist in your career?
I'll start with maybe what is one of the most obvious things. Like Kirsty's in the field right now, and field work can be a little bit challenging if there's a lot of heavy lifting involved. So it usually helps if you have a partner to work with, and if it's a guy, that is also helpful. But we do quite a bit of heavy lifting, maybe during drilling supervision, and you have to bag some like core up, or you have to open manhole covers for boreholes. But yeah, other than that, it hasn't been super challenging, but that's like one of the things that's been a challenge, at least for me.
If I can jump in there, it's not really a challenge, but something that has to kind of be considered, especially with field work, is the security. And depending on where you're working, security can be an issue. And as a woman, you might be less comfortable going into the field by yourself, whereas a man might not ever have that thought and be willing to go by themselves to a particular area. So something that you've got to kind of consider as a woman, depending on where you're working.
Also to add to that, with the safety factor and being maybe supervising a drill rig, as a woman, it takes a little bit more to be more assertive and make sure that they know that you're kind of heading the operation. Because when you're on a rig with maybe 6 or 7 guys and you're a woman, it might not seem as serious. They might not take you as seriously. So I think you have to be more assertive in some instances and, you know, stand your ground.
So Anna, you mentioned, you know, people taking you seriously. Do you find as a woman in geosciences, whether it be meetings with clients or being in the field, that sometimes we aren't taken as seriously?
I would say there's a fine line, but initially I would say maybe you're not until you actually prove that you know what you're talking about. I think a lot of people in industry have evolved to actually take women more seriously, but provided with the fact that you know what you're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, my experience in the field has, you know, when I first started going to drill sites, I found that it was a very Afrikaans environment, and being an English, you know, woman, I found that it took me quite some time to actually earn the respect of the drillers, and had situations where they wouldn't actually address me, but they would address, you know, the male colleague that I was with. But, you know, once I had kind of earned their respect, you know, a few months later, and they actually realized, you know, I was there to mean business, and I knew what I was doing, you know, then it was kind of a happy medium, and, you know, everybody could kind of do their job. But it can take some time to kind of break that ice.
Keenan, at this point, maybe it would be good to ask, have you ever felt something similar as a guy?
Yes, definitely. I've definitely experienced what Jim has been talking about now. When you're out in the field, one of my first few times on site, being with a women colleague as well, the guys the contractors, which are usually males, they would directly come to me first and ask me for questions instead of with more senior colleague who's a woman actually. So yeah, I've definitely experienced, you can see that little discrimination when you are out inside the issue.
Okay. And I think a lot of that, maybe to how to overcome that, is just to be aware of the fact that that's the case.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I had known that, I wouldn't, not that I took it personally, but it does take you by surprise if you aren't expecting it. So if you kind of are aware that may happen, then it just makes you a little bit more confident, and confidence is key. If you're confident, the people around you will take you more seriously, and that, you know, will help your job be easier.
So you speak about confidence. How do we build confidence then? If that is the case, because that's not easy. If you know that the person sees you in a particular light, do you guys have any tips of how to build that confidence?
I mean, for me, very simply, you have to fake it. That is the way. Eventually, you will be able to just become natural.
I agree with you, Gemma. I think a lot of the times you just fake it and go up and give a big handshake and say, hello, I'm Kirsty, I'm from Umvoto, blah, blah, blah. And you just completely fake it. And it comes then after that, the confidence then follows. And if you do that, they know who you are. Even if you're not the most senior, they at least know, hey, I'm a hydrogeologist as well. I'm here, I also have a brain and I can contribute, you know.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Is there anything else that you guys think?
I think what's important, I mean, from the supervisory point of view, is that it's important that whoever's the direct manager of that person in the field gives them the backup and support. If things aren't going well, if they if they're supervising drilling or testing, if the contractors aren't listening to them, that they have the senior person to be like, look, can you speak to the contractor and let them know that yeah, I'm in the field, and just so they have that backup. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't know if Keenan, we spoke about this, but also, as well as someone senior, just your male colleague who's in the field, you know, to give you that backup as well.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Yeah, so that's really important. Yeah, so are there any other challenges that you guys can think of?
Well, I think with the heavy lifting that was mentioned earlier, just knowing like when you want to help, because you have to work as a team, and you know, okay, this is my limit, I can't carry this weight. You have to know, okay, well, I'll pick up on this aspect of the work because I know this is something I physically can't do, and the equipment's expensive, and you don't want anything to like go wrong. So just knowing where you stand and how to work together with the colleague that you're with.
Yeah.
I think another just natural aspect about being a woman is we tend to be agreeable a lot.
Yeah.
And when it comes to maybe office work or presentations, you know, it's easy for someone to maybe ask a question or criticize it in a scientific way, like we normally do. But it's easy to be agreeable and think that you're wrong. So as a woman, sometimes you gotta differentiate between, you know, I am a woman, I generally am agreeable, but my scientific brain is telling me this and I should dissociate from that. So that might be a challenge for some women coming into the sciences.
Yeah. Cool, thanks, Anna. Yeah,
One thing that I would say, which is maybe not a very big challenge, but something that I thought about when I, started working here was being a little concerned about being a woman and being feminine, because even in school, there's a lot of guys who are in the class with us, and then you come to the workplace and there's also a lot of males. So I was worried, oh gosh, is it okay to wear nail polish? Is that too girly? Should I wear makeup? So the concern was that, will people take me seriously if I'm as feminine as, I would like to be? I was not like dressed like a Barbie or anything, but just, the things that women prefer to do, like I said, makeup and doing your nails and stuff. And obviously this is also dependent on the kind of environment where you work. But for me, it was good to see that, oh, hey, look at my other colleague. She's a female and she's been here for a year or two. And, she had her nails painted and like she would wear floral dresses and so forth. Yeah, so it's just.
Hi. Are you back with us?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so just to finish off, it was good to see that there are other women around me who are being just as feminine as they want to be. They're still doing their work, they're still slaying, they're still being professional and they're still being respected. So it's just to say that, yes, it depends on the work environment that you're in. There might be a dress code, but you don't have to necessarily change who you are and how you present, because that doesn't necessarily affect the kind of work that you can do. So yeah, it's definitely something that I thought about when I was starting to work.
Yeah, I was just adding, obviously, I like when I was doing it. Not that I'm stopping any guys when I went off, but I mean, for us in Umvoto anyway, it's very important to us that people feel comfortable. So we don't really have a dress, we don't have a dress code. But it's important for us that people feel comfortable and with who they are, and if I've always said that if anyone wants to dress up, whatever, that's 100%. If that makes you feel comfortable and helps you do your job, then that's all that matters. So I agree with Posh. It shouldn't be an issue. You shouldn't have to change who you are for your job, but obviously some jobs have dress codes and stuff. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion on it.
Cool, thanks, Dylan. Chris, I know you wanted to say something.
Oh no, I just wanted to add, I agree with Posh, but I kind of had the opposite thing where Posh maybe was worrying about being too feminine. I was worried that as a girl, I wasn't showing my femininity enough when I was in the field, because generally field clothes isn't very pretty or feminine. So I was very concerned of always showing, hey, look, I am a girl, I still have my femininity. And I just, maybe it depends on your level of your, I don't know, it's just personal. So I kind of had the opposite to Posh. I'd always wear a little earring in the field, or make sure, you know, look, I am in the field and I'm doing all these heavy lifting and being dirty, but I still have my feminine side. But that's, I guess it's a person to person, and that's what I like doing. Or, but at the end of the day, especially at Umvoto and in the more modern society we live in, people care less and less about, you know, it's more about can you get the job done and who you are rather than what you look like. So yeah, it's quite cool. But just interesting that I had a kind of opposite take to Posh.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think, like you said, is a lot about your personality, and then just knowing how that fits into your workspace, and just the pressures maybe of even having to think about those things in the first place, which potentially guys might not do, you know. Even if you worry about your dress code or whatever. No. Exactly. Yeah, so I think that's just the reality of our society as well, which obviously just trickles down into every field, and I think ours is no different. Is there anything else on that? I think we're good. Yeah, so I think something else that we were quite interested in talking about, so Posh over here is currently expecting, her baby will be born early next year. And yeah, Posh, I know we've had just some conversations about that and what that meant for you, kind of the thought processes you went through being a young scientist, a female scientist. I don't know if there's, yeah, if you'd like to share a bit about that.
Yeah, it was a lot to take in, and you know, when I did find out that I was pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, this is intense. And I think it's also because, you know, I don't really know any other geologists or female geoscientists that have been pregnant and started their families, and in this company, I think one of the first. So thinking about that was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so weird and different, and like, what are people going to say? Are they going to, you know, also be weird about it? And it's been nothing other than positive. I've had positive experiences from everybody, from my peers, from management, and you know, so in terms of, you know, what people would say, that's really been a good response, positive response so far. I think one of the challenges is just being like really tired all the time, and just wanting to sleep. And obviously with field work, it's not super great, but I've been, you know, able to adjust my schedule such that I'm not in the field too much, you know, and if I am going into the field, then I can take it easy a little bit and not have to do the heavy lifting. So in general, I'd say that, you know, that hurdle, I've crossed it, and I'm not as worried anymore about, you know, being that first female scientist in my company who's been pregnant, and just that weird experience. So I can understand that, you know, obviously it can bring changes for a lot of people, from the pregnancy to starting a family, and the toll that that might, you know, take on your work and the hours that you're able to contribute. So it's a first time experience for me, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah.
I'll just add, I mean, the question I was talking about it in the kitchen the other day, just like stuff that obviously myself as a male in the company that doesn't have children, that, you know, like just the logistics behind someone being pregnant, especially we've got 2 floors in our office. So when Posh was further, earlier next year, when Posh was further with the pregnancy, it might be difficult for her to walk up and down the stairs constantly. So it's just stuff like making sure we set her office up in one of the rooms downstairs so that she can continue with her work and not make her life a bit more easier than in the future. So just stuff basically, just kind of logistical stuff is things that it's what's important just to talk about it. And yeah, we're pretty open about that kind of stuff. So us females, we sometimes overlook the obvious, and something like that, you know, when Posh said to me about that, I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't think about that. I will definitely do that. Just let us know when it becomes uncomfortable to walk up and down the stairs. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so it's just about that communication, and I think knowing your company and knowing the right, I suppose, channels to go through to find out like the information you would need. Yeah, so is there anything else you guys would like to talk about with regards to challenges of being a woman in geosciences?
I'd say that just to contribute to this topic, as a scientist, you generally tend to have or think about your family a little bit further on than I think a lot of other professions that maybe you don't really necessarily need a higher qualification for. I think as women, you kind of want to establish somewhat of a basis in your company before having children, and that can be a challenge as well because, you know, by the time maybe you finish your masters or your honors and you get a job and you get experience, you know, you're closer to the bracket of 30 and you're closer to the bracket of maybe having to rush the cycle of having kids or settling down. So I think as a scientist, this is across the board for any industry, but I think it's apparent. I mean, Posh is the first woman to have a child, and you know, we are generally in our late 20s, 30s, and it's quite a different age gap from previous generations. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else on being a woman in science in particular, but I think something that kind of bridges over, I think a lot of women face this, but also just being a young scientist, and even people maybe further on in their career deal with what we call imposter syndrome, which is maybe feeling like you don't quite belong at the company that you're at, or just that you maybe aren't as experienced, and just a lot of insecurities that come with that. So I'm not sure if there's anyone here, if you guys would maybe like to chat about experiences that you've had with that.
I've definitely had that sort of experience, you know, dealing with imposter syndrome. And I think what really helps in that regard is having good mentors and people that you can actually talk to, you know, not necessarily like going to your boss and saying, hey man, this is, you know, I'm struggling with this, but because that can be very difficult. And I think you can rely on, you know, other colleagues and not necessarily like talk to the whole office, but you know, there's this one person, this one woman, or even this one guy, which are like, you know, I look up to this guy or to this person and be able to talk to them and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And you know, in my experience, I went to my former supervisor and he was like, oh, yeah, no, I understand. I've been there too. And, you know, don't worry too much about it. Like, I can almost assure you that everybody in this company has experienced that. So I'd say being able to speak to someone, finding mentors is really, really important. Yeah.
No, definitely. I can agree with that. And, you know, a mentor can definitely just help you feel a bit more confident in asking those questions and not being scared to ask questions. It's something that I've always personally been very good at, and I don't ever have a problem with asking something. And I think that if you do struggle with that, you need to try and force yourself to actually do it, because the more questions you ask, the more help you will get. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. You obviously don't, as Posh said, don't go and say, oh, well, I can't do this. You know, have that one person that is your confidant that you can go to for particular things and get help. But otherwise, do research. You know, talk to your friends outside of work. You know, try and get different perspectives, and just kind of, you know, learn as you go.
Now, just to comment on that as well, I think the important thing that a lot of people neglect is your self-confidence, and to know your worth, that you've put in the work, you've gotten this paper, you studied for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and you've struggled, you've gotten your job. Just to know that you've put in the work, you are where you're there for a reason. You weren't just selected just because they were trying to fill a position. The company sees your worth. So when you feel like you shouldn't be where you are, just look at yourself and be like, where am I? How much did it take for me to get this paper? It's not it can seem simple as a degree, be like, no, but that was just a waste of time, but that could be for you, but for the next person, it could be a different experience.
Yeah, that's true. And just to have patience with yourself. I think the first 1 or 2 or 3 years is always a learning curve. And I guess everyone kind of feels a little bit out of place. There's a lot that you haven't learned in varsity, and there's a lot that you adjust to. So I think patience and, like you said, never forget your self-worth.
Yeah, I think I'll just look, we don't have the picture of the graph, but if you look up the Dunning-Kruger effect on Google, there's a kind of a graph which shows that your lower if you have a low confidence, which is like at the start of your career, but you have some knowledge, you usually fall into this kind of valley of despair, which they call it, where everything seems overwhelming and you don't feel like you know anything. But once you gain experience and you gain confidence, you kind of reach what they call the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of sustainability in terms of knowledge. Don't be like don't be overconfident when you sign off, which is what happens with a lot of people online in the world nowadays, that they read one thing on the internet and they think they're experts and they just end up not being certain or coming across as misinformed. So I think it's just natural as scientists that you have some, you finish university, whichever degree you're doing, even with a PhD, and you get into the working world and you realize there's so much more. You can, imposter syndrome, with that naturally low confidence because you're just starting your first job, it can hit. But the trick is, like everyone else said, is to find a good mentor, ask questions, no questions, stupid. If you don't know something, if it's something that's been done before in your office, find the person that's done it. They can help you and direct you. Don't waste hours trying to find something that someone else can show you in 15 minutes. Yeah. So Arena always used to have a rule. If you're stuck with something at work, give yourself 15 minutes to try. I'm talking more about kind of prior work and stuff, other projects. Obviously, if it's like research, then you obviously have to give put time into to research the problem. If it's something like on Excel or something on Word and you can't figure it out after 15 minutes, just go find someone that knows how to solve that problem. And you'll save yourself a lot of stress and you'll improve your own confidence by learning that skill, by having been taught it by someone.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is to kind of be open to the fact that you are constantly learning. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how experienced you are or how experienced you think you are, you will always learn. There's always something new to learn. And if you're open to that, then you can only learn new things. And it will always help you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks guys for that input. That's very, very helpful. So some of the questions that we had, and I think Dylan, you might be the best person to answer this, is I think when you're studying, you're not exactly sure who the players are in the geosciences industry or the environmental sciences industry. It's not as maybe as easily laid out as a lot of other jobs or degrees that you might study for. So I wonder if you could just quickly give us an outline of that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, as a geoscientist, whatever field of geology or hydrogeology that you might be in, basically when you leave or don't leave university, you pretty much got three choices, three general choices. You can stay in academia and become an academic, which is the people that are interested in research, that's a good way to go. And then you can either work in the public sphere, so essentially for government. In South Africa, as a geologist, you can work for the Council of Geoscience, that's today the Geological Survey of South Africa. If you are interested in hydrogeology and want to work in the public sphere, the Department of Water and Sanitation would be your best bet. There are other public departments such as the Department of Energy and Mineral Resources, which might employ geologists in other aspects, such as PetroSA and the Petroleum Agency of South Africa. Those are other two options for petroleum geology in the public sphere. But if you want to get into the private industry, there are, I guess, a lot more avenues to get into. So you could, depending on the type of geology you study, you could be involved in mining, whether you work directly for a mine, for a specific mine, or if you're a consultant in the exploration geology field, or mineralogy, or remote sensing for exploration, all those kind of subspheres of various exploration geology fields. Then from a hydrogeology perspective, which is what we specialize in, you can work for a private groundwater consultancy. You could also work in an environmental consultancy that maybe focuses more on EIAs, but being a specialist for them for geological and hydrogeological specialist studies. Those are the kind of different fields you can look into once you finish university.
Okay, cool, thank you. We had a lot of questions about exactly where you guys can look for internships and those kinds of things within some of these companies or these different fields. And we'll get to that a bit later, and we will be sending stuff to everyone after the webinar is completed with just more information as to what Dylan was talking about. Okay, so I think part of the webinar is also just to give everyone a good idea of exactly what a geoscientist does on the day-to-day. So yeah, we're going to spend some time now just giving an overview of what a day in the life looks like. So obviously we spoke earlier about field work and office work. So yeah, talking about field work, we have already briefly touched on it earlier, but what are some of the realities that you guys have experienced when doing field work on the day-to-day?
So can I just give an overview? So at Umvoto, our focus is primarily groundwater. So with our field work, it usually involves drilling supervision, test pumping supervision, and that would include logging core, supervising the drilling and test pumping. So you just want to make sure everything's compliant. Want to make sure that the UDA is correctly with the drillers, the test pumping guys, so that the right ball design and stuff is followed. And then another one is monitoring. So that could be water quality monitoring, so sampling walls, water level monitoring, abstraction monitoring. Usually when we do go on monitoring campaigns, it can be physically taxing. You're usually out there for a couple of weeks. But like we mentioned before, teamwork is the #1 thing when it comes to monitoring, because you're out there with your partner, so you can manage the load. So touching on women in science again, I've been out in the field with women and men, and I can tell you a lot of women can lift a lot more than a lot of men can. But it's all about finding the right balance with the right team that you're with. It just gets the job done a lot easier. And I mean, when you are out in the field also, you get to go to a lot of places that a lot of other people don't have the opportunities to. So you have amazing views, and always take time to look at that, because don't just focus on the job all the time. Take a moment and just breathe and just take it where you are. But with that being said, the work, the data that's captured in the field, that's what's the basis for everything else to follow. So a task as simple as taking a water level can seem minute to just tipping it at a ball, but in the bigger scheme, that goes on to make your decisions further down the line, and that comes down to managing the resource. So just meticulous field work leads to good management.
Cool.
Yeah, on the other side to fieldwork, more what I do is on the environmental side. So I work as an environmental control officer, and I'll have to go to various drill sites and actually look at more the compliance side of things and how the different drill sites are managed and make sure that the contractors are actually complying with, various environmental management programs. What does a particular method statement say for that site? What can they and can't do on any particular site in terms of the environment. And I've also been to site quite a bit of cleaning, and we'll go and you have a checklist. Sometimes it can be quite boring and monotonous, and you've got to just do a checkbox and see what's going on at site. But that then leads to writing a report and then dealing with the contractors and whoever the client is and making sure that actually everything is running smoothly. And as Keenan said, it can take you to some really interesting places. And I've been quite fortunate to see a lot of very different places. They might not be beautiful from a scenic point of view, but it's been incredibly interesting to see how dynamic, our country, but how the Western Cape and Cape Town is, and seeing just the difference, from one side to another. So it's been quite an amazing opportunity, and if you are into that, it can really help you grow as a person, just in random things that you wouldn't have even thought of, just your perspective, to see, simply how privileged you are, or how, other people live that you don't live like that. And I think that's really crucial, just to keep an open mind and to not get, kind of in your little bubble of what your life is, versus how a lot of other people live. So that's just been my experience.
That's great. Is there any other type of fieldwork that we've maybe left out?
So I can talk about my experience in my previous company. We went to mine sites, and a very good experience was going to Congo. That was quite cool because, traveling as a scientist, they take care of your safety, your security, they let you have access to certain things that other people don't. And when you get to maybe these remote villages or, the site that you're going to monitor at, you realize, like what Gemma was saying, the kind of difference in lifestyle, the difference in perspective, how these people have to live. And you also realize the difference that you're making potentially in the bigger scheme of things. If you manage to manage groundwater resources efficiently, you're making an impact to these people's lives that are maybe around the mine that need water quality or water supply and things like that. So being a scientist in this field, getting to travel to different places, but also having the security behind you is really phenomenal, I think.
Are there any highlights of field trips or places any of you have visited that you'd like to just briefly share?
I think we had a project 6 years ago, or 7 to 6 years ago. We went to what's called the Dainipol Depression in northeastern Ethiopia, which is based on the average annual temperature, the hottest inhabited place on Earth. That was really amazing. As a geologist, getting to see essentially active volcanoes and hydrothermal vents in the Rift Valley, 120 meters below sea level. That was pretty spectacular. And that was a really awesome trip. Also from the, not just the geology, but getting to go to different countries such as Ethiopia, like Annalise said, seeing how different cultures are, and I really enjoyed Ethiopia. That was really awesome. So yeah, that was the highlight for me as a geologist over the past 15 years or so. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, I can come in from the opposite side of that. Because last year I was doing drilling supervision in a little town, Kalderstorp, in the Western Cape, and the opposite of those hot temperatures like Dylan was talking about. We were out there for a month in winter, and every morning you have to balance with ice on the windshield. But that was an amazing experience, just being out surrounded by the mountains. We were surrounded by these like anticlines and stuff, and every morning you were woken up by baboons on site. But what an amazing experience out there.
Yeah, I feel as a geologist or in the geosciences field, and that I've personally been lucky to be able to see most of South Africa as a geologist through drilling, studying, and work. And I think it's very important that you do. A lot of people in South Africa don't get to see our own country, so I think it's a really good field to get into. If you want, obviously, if you're going to work in a lab, it's a bit different as a geochemist. But if you're a field geologist or hydrogeologist or whatever, or you're an exploration geologist, it's a really great field to be able to, see different places, see parts of South Africa you might not have seen. It gives you appreciation of your country a lot more than if you're sitting in your home in the city. So I've been very grateful for being a geoscientist the last 15 years and while studying prior to that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So it's definitely, if that's something that interests you, then the geosciences is definitely the field to be in. So we've spoken a lot about field work, but office work is also a reality in the geosciences. So maybe if there's someone who'd just like to give maybe an overview of exactly what we do on the day-to-day from if we're in the office, if we're not in the field.
I think Dylan can also chime in here just because he has the most experience. But there's a lot of report writing, and I think everybody gets the opportunity to go out into the field and collect data. And you don't just collect that data, but you have to organize it, you have to sort it, and you have to analyze it. And then from there, you have to write a report for the client and give some recommendations. So if you don't like report writing, you need to start changing that attitude if this is what you want to do, because there's a lot of that involved. And then there's also a lot of research and reading, which I think is pretty cool because I enjoy learning new things, so that I find pretty interesting. Maybe Dylan, you can talk a bit more about the admin side of things.
Yeah, I mean, with the reporting and the data analysis, it obviously depends on the projects you're doing. If we're doing a large-scale regional study, obviously that involves a lot of research and data analysis, so you can afford to spend the time on that. If you're doing a smaller project for, say, a farmer or for an estate or something like that, where you don't have a lot of budgets, you spend less time. You kind of got to work out the balance between making money as a consultant and doing the best that you can for the client. So you come up with the best solutions for the client. So from our side, in a higher management role, a lot of the work that I do is we obviously managing budgets, doing proposals, managing the various teams in the office to make sure that people are doing work and actually making the company money. That's the other thing. Yeah, and I mean that's general project management stuff, dealing with clients. It just comes with experience. We don't expect someone to just start working after 1 to 2 years to deal directly with certain clients, because there is an aspect of knowing how to speak to a client, even how to email the client. There is some politics sometimes that you have to deal with, which can be a bit tricky. It can be frustrating sometimes because it's the same as the service industry. The client is always right, at least from a payment point of view and dealing with the outcomes of the work. Not to say that you must give them exactly what they want. Your job as a consultant is to come up with the best solution to the specific problem that they've come to you with. And sometimes it's not the solution that they want. And you have to try explain to them why the best solution is maybe not the one that they want, or it's maybe not the cheapest, but it's the best for the resource or the environment. So our ultimate client is always the environment, at least from our company perspective. So yeah, we always take that into when we're making recommendations for work. Yeah, so I think we'll come to it later, but you have to have a lot of soft skills to do project management, and that just comes with experience. When we feel ready when we feel that someone is ready after maybe a couple of years of working, that they're ready to deal with the client, we'll let them first do maybe the proposal for the work, have us CC'd in the emails to the client, just so we can keep an eye on what's going on, and then let them take it from there, and obviously starting off with maybe a smaller client for a smaller project, and not dumping them in with a big national municipal client, but you end up getting there over time. So yeah, that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. On top of technical work, I also do a lot of technical work and reviewing reports. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
Cool. If I can maybe just add there, something that you might think of as a student coming out of university is, how to kind of gain that professionalism. And unfortunately, it is something that comes with experience, but you can kind of help yourself by exposing yourself to, certain things. And, if you engage with, maybe your supervisors at university, and you see how they talk to you, obviously it's difficult if you have a very friendly relationship with people, or people who are in, senior positions. But if you gauge kind of the way that they talk, the way that they write, and you take on some of those skills, you can learn what you can and can't say, or how something should be phrased. Always try and think, if I was to be writing to a lawyer, for example, how would you write that? Not obviously every situation is going to call for that, but if you're talking to a client, rather be more formal than less. And if you're unsure, you can always get somebody to review your emails or review any kind of correspondence that you're having to do. That comes back to asking for help kind of thing. But the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And so you've got to just go with it and learn from how other people are engaging with clients and in a professional manner.
Cool, thanks, Gemma. We mentioned working as a team as well as a geoscientist, and I think that that's something that you do just have to learn. But I think that even in our company and in most companies, you will work with people who didn't exactly study what you studied. I'm not a geologist, and even besides your academic background, just in general, people are all different. And is there anything that you guys maybe want to add to that, sort of working as a team in an office with everyone who has different skill sets, and how to then come up with this final product, reports, or do you guys have any experiences that you'd like to share about that?
I think, it's going to sound cliche, but communication is key. And I think when you know who you're chatting to, if you have a vision of what they do on a day-to-day, you get to know their role better, and you kind of speak in terms of what they generally use in their language or their diction. It's easier to portray your message across and then work together as a team. So for instance, each one of us at Umvoto, we specialize in something slightly different to each other. And if I, for instance, come with my modeling terminology and expect an outcome from any one of you, I think you would have a little bit of confusion. So it's good to actually learn the people that your team players know what they do on a regular, and then convey the message accordingly to how they see things.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that is also, when you're dealing with your clients, sometimes they might not be, specialized in what you're dealing with. So often you have to take something that is highly specialized and academic and put it into a language and a way that they can understand it. So you're kind of making it accessible to the lay person who isn't necessarily a scientist. You know, if you're dealing with a farmer who, you know, wants to drill a borehole, you can't be using big terms and, you know, talk to them like you would with your colleagues. So it is, you do have to have that balance of, you know, being able to talk professionally, but then also being able to take that into a understandable, you know, sense. Yeah.
I mean, from a management point of view, what we try to get the younger staff to do is to understand everyone's strengths and weaknesses. And I don't just mean from a scientific background point of view or the scientific interest point of view, but also the kind of soft skills and point of view. So on a project, maybe someone might not be the best at reporting, but they're great in supervising drilling and collecting data. So you kind of know how to use them for a certain project and where to put their time. Also, if you, so yeah, we try to promote that people in the office walk around. It's great that COVID's gone, so that it's kind of back to face-to-face interactions. I try not to use Teams anymore unless someone's not in the office, but I'd rather someone comes to my desk and asks me something, presuming I'm in the office. Because yeah, you learn what different people are good at, and like I said earlier, you then end up not wasting your time on something that someone else knows about and can direct you in the right way, as well as knowing how to work together on certain tasks and projects. So yeah, we try to promote that with the younger staff, and I think yeah, that's a good way to build teamwork as well.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I think we should maybe move on to the next sort of set of questions, which had a lot to do with bridging the gap between being a student at university and moving into the working world, into the geosciences industry. So we had a lot of very nice questions from everyone. So I think the main question we got was, how do you as a student, particularly if you don't have any work experience, how do you help yourself to stand out when you apply for internships or jobs? How can you help your employability? Can you guys share your wisdom?
Can I jump in with one point? I like the comment. I think it was Gemma who was talking about professionalism, and I think that's the one thing that Rowena really taught me at Umvoto. She called it being work fit, and she said that, you know, when you come out of university, you're just not work fit, and little things like, I've had CVs. I mean, there's a lot that you can do to make yourself more employable, but get the basics right. I've had CVs sent to me with spelling mistakes in them, and I've had CVs where, you know, the covering letter and the grammar's not great. And I understand perhaps English isn't the first language of the person sending it to me, but at the same time, English would be the first language of the reports that we write. So those basics just have to be right first. So professionalism, I think, goes a long way. And there were comments about, you know, writing emails to clients. I see some people do it at work now, you know, dear whoever, see attached. And they haven't even said, please see attached the, you know, the updated report or whatever. Like professionalism, full sentences, that kind of thing, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree with Helen. It's like, if we get CVs, the first thing I look at is how the CV is formatted. If it's all different, so I know it sounds really pedantic, but it's the first thing that I look at. So if the CV is different size text, different types of text, different spacing, not justified, never mind the usually associated with that is usually poor, you know, spelling mistakes and stuff. I just don't even carry on looking at it, unfortunately. So it's really important to have like if you're looking for work, to have a really nicely formatted, structured CV. It's, you know, there's so many resources online nowadays. There's templates everywhere that can help with that. So yeah, it's well worth putting effort into kind of doing the CV that like stands out, because we do get sent a lot. and also, it might be a bit late if you're obviously not so third year, but do your best that you can at university, marks wise. Because if I get a CV and someone's, look, it's not always the case, but a lot of the cases, if someone's just kind of passed things or has failed a lot of subjects versus someone that's getting 80s and 90s, I'm going to go with the person 8, 9 times out of 10 with those marks, the good marks. And look, I know lots of times there's reasons for people might not have done well, and like, you know, we have employed people with those kind of marks because there's been underlying reasons why they might struggle in a certain year or something like that. But that also links to having a good CV. So, you know, if you've got a really professional CV and then I see, oh, like 1 year did badly, then I'm like, okay, but maybe they had a tough time for whatever reason. You know, the CV looks good and professional, so we can maybe interview them and find out why their marks are bad. Because when they get a really badly formatted, poor grammar CV and marks of 40%, I'm sorry, it's not going to go very far. So take the time, and when you it's important.
No, I mean, if English isn't your first language, then, you know, put a CV together and get somebody who maybe is, you know, English is their first language, and get them to proof it for you. You know, at any point, you know, you can, I think there actually are even companies that do that. But not even that, you know, ask your friends, get somebody, if you know somebody who is employed, maybe a family member, you know, if you've got an aunt or an uncle or anybody who has any kind of, you know, skill in that, get them to help you to put it together. And, you know, use simple things like, you know, when you're writing it, if you're putting it together in Word, you can put on the language tool and it will pick up the different spelling errors and things that, you know, you might have missed. So they're really simple things that you can do to kind of help yourself, but then also go that extra step and, you know, get somebody to review it. If you've seen a really good CV somewhere, use it as a template. You know, it's you're going to be putting in your own work, your own experience and expertise anyway. But yeah, so try and find something that is good, and, you know, you can still be creative in how your CV looks. It doesn't have to be black and white. It can still be, you know, something visually appealing if that is, you know, what you want, but it can still look professional.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. And I think we do have like a video that was recently made about CV tips, and this is really something that would be worth your while, just to sit for an afternoon and just get a good CV together. So we will send that out to you guys, yeah, in a follow-up email.
Just someone can say about the design stuff. Someone that used to work for us with, I got a CV a few years ago, and she had actually put one of her maps from her master's in her CV. And it was a really impressive that not even reading the CV, I could see like, this is awesome, like she knows what she's doing. That made me want to employ her, because I'm like, she knows, like, just seeing the map, she knows structural geology, she knows like the GIS, she knows, she has a good eye for design, cartography, and the structure of her reports. I mean, the CV, which makes me think she's going to know how to do a report properly. So that's 3 things just from looking at a picture from something from her master's. So that's another idea. Yeah.
Okay, that's very creative, and I think that when you study, you also have to see yourself as a brand that you're carrying. Just like you said, you know, try and get high marks, but also try and befriend the people that are in your class. Because when you guys eventually go scouting for jobs, you know, if you have a good reputation from varsity, chances are your friend gets hired and they have possibly a word for you too. And that comes with just also making your CV, you know, go to your friends, ask them to proofread, but also know at the back of your head there are opportunities. I think in varsity, a lot of the time, students were focused on being the best in class, focused on being the people that get into masters and honors, and it became a little bit competitive. And with that competition, you start to actually lose other opportunities further down the line. And your personality goes such a long way besides just your academia. So yeah, use the connections you have, even if that's university professors. your friends, and LinkedIn. I mean, there's a lot of connections that can be made from there. And me and Keenan were chatting the other day, don't just go out there and say, hey, is there a job available? Actually do research on the companies you potentially want to work for, and perhaps hire people in that company, like people who hire out, and say to them, hey, look, if you've done research on that person, I like this project that you did in so-and-so area. I'm interested in this kind of sector because during my master's or honors or whatever, I had done this research. Can you tell me more about your role? A lot of LinkedIn connections actually feel really honored or motivated. Maybe not say motivated, let me say impressed. Yeah, impressed by the fact that you took your time to first research them. And secondly, they feel important. And I think that's one of the good ways to get yourself in the door. If you actually take interest in someone else's work, and more likely than even if you don't score a job from that person has you at the back of their mind and is really happy to share what they've done. So you've got a learning experience from that, and you've got a potential connection. And you can better feel out where you fall into this geoscience space just by using the tools that you have and the connections that you have around you. Yeah.
One of the biggest things that might be going through your minds is how do you put a CV together if you don't have any experience? But experience doesn't have to be a job necessarily. Experience can have many forms, and obviously when you have been working, not everybody has a job when they're studying. Some people just study, but you will have done things throughout your university that are going to have meaning. So maybe you joined a particular club and you were an admin assistant in it, or you helped your parents with their company, and so you learned some skills in that. All experience is valid, and you can use that to your advantage if you just spin it the right way. When you go to school, when you're in school and before you go to university, you actually start getting, maybe you get awards because you've done well in with your marks and things. Maybe, at school you were a prefect or you did a Toastmasters course. When you're first starting out, those kinds of things are important, and they speak to who you are, and it speaks to either the skills that you have, but also kind of what you're prepared to do, and that you are willing to work and do different things. Even if you are going into a specialization, for me, I'm a climatologist, it's a highly specialized field, but that doesn't mean that that's only my experience. I have a lot of other things that I've done that make me a more grounded person. So even if you have that one special thing, maybe you, I don't know, like cooking, and there'll be something in that can be used somehow, that skill. So you've got to just be creative in how you can sell the skills that you have, basically, in putting it together.
Like you said, it doesn't have to be in your field. I mean, Shakira is a good example. Then what's kind of your other intern jobs that you've had before coming here?
Yeah, I did a lot of nuclear physics work. Yeah, it was my other major was physics, so I did a whole bunch of stuff in that route. But I decided to specialize in geology. But I still added it to my CV because there are some. I guess the type of work I did was a lot of report writing in physics, but also I learned how to code in physics, and a lot of things like that gave me skills that I could still apply to a geology-based job.
Yeah, I mean, I was an honor student. I used to count sand grains. No, that's like literally, there was a PhD student doing his doctorate on a little shoal, and he had all these sand samples he needed to know the percent quartz, lithics, carbonate, shell fragments. So I literally in my free time between lectures, I would go and take a slide under the microscope and count sand grains for it. But I mean, it gives you experience and things that you might not. Okay, that was kind of geology related, but not what I do now. But it's just that you can put on your CV that you did something like that. So you don't have to work in a company. You can do other stuff at university, and there's always people that are probably willing to give opportunities for you to do that kind of other stuff.
Yeah, I think even for me when I started here, I almost took something off my CV, but I decided to leave it on. And that was just during lockdown. A friend and I were bored and we just started a website. And yeah, that was our hobby, I suppose, during lockdown. And I left it on my CV, but I wasn't convinced about it. And talking later to Rowena, she had said that, well, they were looking to, you know, grow their marketing at Umvoto, and it really worked in my favor that I left that on my CV. And that's a skill, you know. I think I underestimated that at the time, but that was, yeah, knowing what to leave off and what to leave on is useful. So if it's a skill that you gained, that could be useful. You never know what the company is looking for exactly. So yeah, be wise about that.
The other thing with, you know, different types of experience, if it's not exactly job related, it can show also who you are as a person, which an employer wants to see. They want to see, are you disciplined? Are you, you know, a go-getter? Are you organized? All these different personality traits that are unique to each one of us can help you in your job. So if you have some kind of experience that will show that particular thing, you know, maybe you like ballroom dancing, there are going to be skills in that, there are going to be traits in that that are not specific to your job and your industry, but they highlight something in you that is important. And so, yeah, it's good to have that type of thing so that they can actually, it's not just the experience you have, but ultimately you're selling yourself. You're selling who you are and what you can offer to a company, and, you know, to the work that they're needing.
Definitely, and I think it's, I don't know where like all of you are at in terms of in your university career, but I think it's important to be proactive. A very good piece of advice I got from a lecturer was treat university as if it's your job. And yeah, be proactive about finding that work if possible. I think that's a really important thing. I don't know if any of you have any tips for finding that work or just experiences that you've had.
I think especially in while you're towards the last legs of university, so towards the end of it, just talk to the lecturers who you resonate with, or who specialize in certain things that you want to move forward with, and you can ask them, like, is there any work I can do to help you or any of your students, or even if they know of any colleagues that have work that you could do. And even if it's something small at first, maybe they'll keep you in mind for if something does come up in the future that's more bigger and could be more helpful.
Yeah, again, like a student also the easiest. That's everything sounds like. I mean, no, this is my first year at the Royal. We had biology and 101, whatever it was called, diversity of life was the course at University of Umvoto. And yeah, they were looking for first years to go do back work in Johannesburg to count trees.
Nice.
For elephants vocal studies. And that was really awesome. We got all paid, all expenses paid, trip to Johannesburg to do vegetation transects for 3 weeks. It was awesome, you know, it's a great experience. And I mean, I don't have anything to do with that kind of vegetation nowadays, but yeah, I was 17 years old and I went out with a bunch of much older masters and PhD students. And it's just good to get that kind of experience as a person and as a scientist. It helps you, you know, mold your mind a bit.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember is that you might not have experience, but you can ask certain people to write references for you. So something that you will have to start getting as you get more experience and get into kind of the job industry is that you have to have references. You need people, the job that you're applying to are going to want to ask somebody else their impression of you. And you can go to your lecturers and ask them to write letters for you. I had a number of university lecturers that did that of their own accord. You can go to them and say, actually, you know, one day I might, whatever job it is, please can you write a reference for me? And if you had a good relationship with one of your lecturers, if they don't want to do it, they'll say no. But most of the time, they actually are more than willing to, you know, give a good reference. And that you can include to any job application, as long as you know, it doesn't matter how old you are, how many jobs you've had. I still include references like that, you know, if there's certain things. So just remember that you can always go to your lecturers and get those references. They're really important.
Yeah, so I mean, Shakira's came through us because of her supervisor, who I know, he is my supervisor as well for my masters. And how I got my job in Umvoto was I put my geology professor, who I had a good relationship with, in my references. And I mean, when I applied on Umvoto, I had no idea that he had studied with Chris at UCT, and they knew each other. So Chris, the first thing Rowena and Chris did was phone Professor Watkins at the University of Natal and was like, you know, we think of employing Dylan. You know, is he worth employing? And you never know who knows who in the industry. So if you can get that kind of references from your lecturers or professors, that's also good.
Yeah. On the other side of that, it's also important to remember that in the back of your head when you're engaging with different people, and don't burn bridges. If you have a lecturer that you might not necessarily get on with, you never know who can be a reference for you down the line. So try not to, just react to something that you might disagree with. That's kind of just a life lesson. Always kind of think, down the line, this person could actually help me. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that it's a lot about networking and using the network that you have. I think as students, we often don't think we have one, but your peers are, your lecturers are definitely a network that is worth maintaining and you're investing in. I think part of that is also then expanding your network. So doing back work, you could meet, new people as well. I think though, just personally, coming from a small town, so I grew up in Grahamstown, now known as Makanda, and I went to Rhodes. And it's very different. There's not many consultancies or opportunities for that work. It's very limited. And if you maybe go to Port Elizabeth or East London, it comes a cost factor of getting there and rents, or staying in an Airbnb or something, which just is really not feasible. And so I think sometimes it's different. In Cape Town, it potentially could be a bit easier, or in bigger cities, but in my case, I really struggled to find back work. It just wasn't really an option. You can maybe think of it more creatively online. Maybe you could do some back work online, or do something else. Maybe do online courses. There's a lot of free, really good online courses there. I've had to be involved in quite a lot for my masters, and even there I've built up a network of other students, lecturers from other universities, and just other professionals. And so I think that's really something to also do. If you can't get back work, maybe look at some online webinars, free courses to be a part of.
Yeah, now the one good thing that came out of COVID is that there's a lot of online talks nowadays. And we're doing one now, but I'm thinking specifically geology-wise, the GSSA often has free talks. The Geological Society of South Africa, which as a geologist, a future geologist, geoscientist, you should try to join even as a student member. Certain universities also have talks that are free on Zoom and other platforms, so WITS does that a lot. I think every week they have a talk. There's also groups like the Overberg Geosciences group. If you search them on Google, they have talks every week that are free that you can join if you're a student. They usually on Zoom, and they usually put them up on YouTube afterwards. So those are also good resources to look into and to first gain knowledge and to see who's in the industry or who's in what specialist field, and what you might find something that really interests you if you want to pursue that as a career. So those are really good things that came out of COVID. Is the kind of more open sharing of knowledge. It's not just stuck in journals that you have to pay ridiculous amounts for.
Yeah. For sure.
I'll just say, to add on to what Dylan just said quickly, is these webinars are really quite useful. Conferences too, because one of the things that you get out of them is for some events, there's usually a list of sponsors at the end. Not always, but I know that when I was looking for a job, Googling wasn't getting me very far, if I should say, because not all companies will have a website. So then there might be a company, here in Cape Town, it's a small company, but if they don't have a website, then I might not find them on Google. But attending webinars like this and other professional events, you can see just who the industry players are. And you can just create, little snapshots or like write down a list of the companies that you've seen. And then you can go and say, okay, these are the people that I can, email for maybe a job, down the line when you're searching, or to just get in touch with some of the professionals. Like Annalisa was saying earlier, I really like the work that you've done on XYZ and so on. So yeah, just attending these sorts of events can be very, very useful.
Yeah, definitely. Kevin, I see your hand is up. Would you like to, do you have something to add?
Thanks, Rebecca. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add earlier with regards to finding that work and permanent work even. I think another important thing is just to never give up, because it's very easy to be discouraged when you get no correspondence from companies through emails or phone calls, or when you get rejected. It's very, very easy to get discouraged. So yeah, you just got to keep going and never give up. I mean, I've been with Umvoto for over 3 years, I think now, and I applied with Umvoto 3 times. Got the job, and the first time I got no correspondence. The second time I got a email reply saying your CV looks good, but not at this time. We are unable to hire at this time. And the third time I got lucky and I managed to get the job. So I think, yeah, you just got to keep trying always, and don't get discouraged. It's one of the major things. You'll go far in finding something.
I think what Kevin didn't add is that he actually came up to us at the conference after his second attempt, I think. Look, yeah, sometimes we get so many CVs, they do get lost in the ether. Sometimes we do try to reply to everyone. Yeah, sometimes it's not easy, but we don't have a dedicated HR person, unfortunately. But yeah, when Kevin came and introduced himself to us at the conference, it was great because then we could put a face to the CV, and but then it was a lot easier engaging with him because you knew who he was. So sometimes we all people. We're not we have a very horizontal kind of management structure here, so we kind of promote. There's no like you have to talk to someone to talk to the manager. It doesn't work like that for us anyway. But yeah, if you're at a conference, if you get a chance to go to a conference, yeah, stick around if you like having a beer or so. It's always a good way to speak to someone, especially as a geologist. We do, most of us do like having a few beers. And
I think that's how me and you first met, was at a conference over a beer. Yeah.
And half years and first year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always a good way to meet people, and you don't have to talk shop or talk about work. You can just talk about interesting other stuff. It's just you just get to know that person on a personal level. And it's not just about work and stuff, and that's always a good way to make an impression.
If I can just jump in there.
Sorry, just to finish up there as well, as Ellen says, companies go through phases as well. So yeah, a lot of the time it's not about people get discouraged when they don't get answers or when they get rejected, but a lot of the time it's just because of timing. It's not necessarily because your CV is bad or you're not fit for the job, but the company itself is not able to hire at this time. They might look at your CV and say it's really good, but you can't due to budgets of time, or whatever the case is. So you've got to increase the chances and hope that by sending out more CVs, you're increasing the chance to hopefully get the timing right on one of those companies that you're sending CVs to. So yeah, I was jobless for about 8 months before I worked for Umvoto, and I sent out hundreds of CVs through that time, local and international. So
you just have
you've
to
got to keep going.
to do that. Yeah. So
Sorry, Gemma.
No, I just wanted to add to that, just realize that rejection is a part of the process. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you won't be as disappointed or won't take it as personally. Obviously, it is a personal thing, and it's difficult not to, but it is part of the process. And you are 99% going to get more rejections than you do acceptances. So you do have to just persevere. But the other side to that is, you don't have to only use platforms that are, job platforms. So obviously you have your LinkedIn, you have the jobs 24, whatever those different platforms are. But another way that you can look for jobs is to actually search online for the companies that you would want to work for, and go through the types of jobs that they might be offering. But not even that, send your CV in anyway. Send it to their admin person, or to, if they have an HR department, because you never know when, even if a company isn't actually hiring, maybe in a month's time, a position might actually come up that you could be perfect for. So you can always send your CV to anybody at any time. There's no right or wrong time to, inquire and say, hey, look at me, I'm here, I can do this.
Yeah, and we were chatting at lunch today. One of our colleagues, Matthew Misrol, he was saying something he did when he was looking for a job. I think you get overwhelmed as to where to even find these jobs. Something he did, which was quite creative, is he looked at some people that he maybe knew of in the industry who had been working, had a long career, and he just went to their job history and looked at places they'd worked before, and especially places that they started at with internship programs. And that's where he found Umvoto, and that's where he ended up, beginning his career. And so I think that, be creative. Something also just to look at vacancies. Even if you're a student and you're not looking for a job, it gives you the idea of what jobs you would potentially end up in, as well as just keeping an eye on that company, and even contacting them as a student and asking to do back work as a student, building that relationship up. So you got to use LinkedIn, use it creatively, and I think we should maybe just move on to, we have about 10 minutes left, and I see that there's a nice question from Michelle here that I'd like to answer. But I think before we do that, if we can just quickly talk very briefly about practical tips of skills that is helpful to have as a geoscientist. So Dylan mentioned earlier soft skills, and there's also just more practical, harder skills that you can learn that will just serve you well. And this again speaks to what can make you stand out. What are the skills at the moment in 2022 that bosses and companies, consultancies are looking for? So yeah, what would you guys say? What are some hard skills? Let's start there. So that's skills that you can practically learn, courses you can do. What would you guys say?
So I would say definitely something kind of off the bat, which, if you're in this industry or you're studying this at university, you should have some kind of experience in it, is how to use Excel. Trying to figure out different, what are they called? Equations,
Shortcuts.
Yeah, all the shortcuts and things. And there are so many online courses and a lot of free courses that you can do to actually get yourself proficient in, those types of programs. But Excel is a huge one. And then if you are going to be doing more of the kind of geography side of things, GIS is a really good one to kind of get experience in. Yeah,
I'd add to that. Also master the art of Google Maps and Google Earth, especially Google Earth. Learn key things like how to put a location, how to add sites to that map. I mean, that's all free resources right there. Also, the freeware of GIS is QGIS. So if you guys have that opportunity, maybe at varsity, you guys are exposed to ArcGIS. The freeware is QGIS, which is a lot of online YouTube content, and that really helps with map creation. So think about how you would approach going to sites, finding a borehole, locating it, and mapping it out. And I think more hard skills that's pretty wanted in industry. Like Shakira said, she came from physics. Coding is big. If you want to be super employable, I mean, often in these consultancy companies, you get a lot of data that you have to crunch through. And if you can code it and you can save time in the future for the company, I mean, you're a great asset. So if you can find things like coding courses, if you want to become a little bit more specialized, well, not more specialized, but if you want to go into like modeling or just computer-based software, I think that's always a big advantage.
For coding in particular, I always find it difficult to know which one is more like needed. But what I found is that with a lot of, if you at least know one coding language, it's like the same language but different accent. So like Python and R, and I'm not sure much about SQL, but like a few of them are very similar. It's just different like things to add to it, but it's the same, similar formats. So just at least one. I think R is very common in this industry. So, yeah.
Great. No, Peter needs to come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When you talk about that in the drivers,
No.
please be able to drive. I shouldn't really talk because I didn't have a driver when I started working, but yeah, it is essential to be able to drive and to be able to know what to do. If you have a burst tire or something like that, that's really important. If you have if you're able to try send yourself on a 4x4 and an advanced driving course, because people are really bad drivers in South Africa. So it's just a reality that we have to deal with. And you know, if the more skills you have with respect to driving, because a lot of the time, if you're going to be working in the field as a geologist, as a geoscientist, there'll be a lot of driving involved, more than likely. So yeah, it's a really good skill to have. So yeah, get your driving skills up, or just get your license first. And I mean, it is for us. We employ someone nowadays. This is something that we do look at, because it makes our life really difficult if someone can't drive, and we need to get them stuff. We need to involve them in field work. So yeah.
Sure, definitely. Okay, so on the side of soft skills, what are some soft skills that are needed if you're a geoscientist?
I would say being organized. For my work specifically, I have to manage climate data and databases. And if you are organized, it just makes it so much easier to be able to handle, large suites of data. So obviously it depends on what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis in your particular job. But I found that that's been super helpful in making my job easier for myself. And whenever anybody has ever needed something from me, it's a quick, easy thing to go and find what they're asking for, and I can give it to them in a few minutes to go and find something. But if you're disorganized and you don't know where things are, or you just have things haphazardly saved, it just makes your life more difficult, really. So yeah, it's been my saving grace.
Cool.
I think teamwork is another big thing, especially when you transitioning from university, when you're all on your own and everybody hates group work because you're going to work with certain people. But when you get into a work environment, you aren't alone anymore. Everything you do, you're working in a team. So to be a good team member yourself, you've got to be hardworking, resilient, and then have that good communication skills that we touched on early on.
Yeah, and time management is also really important. Particular jobs, they might have a timesheet that you need to fill in, and so you need to be able to account for your hours. And obviously, the more efficiently you work, the better that is for everybody. It means that you can do more work, or you just are, more efficient. But not everybody can work like that. Some people want to take time and they're perfectionists, but there are situations where you actually can't be a perfectionist. You just have to do the best that you can. And sometimes that isn't, the perfect thing that you want it to be. So you need to realize that and just give, the best that you can. But yeah, you need to realize that, it's an 8-hour day for most jobs. And, you need to be able to get as much done in that as possible. Obviously not, overworking yourself and becoming a, so it is a balance, but yeah, so you got to kind of just figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I think that these are skills as well that you develop. I mean, you're not going to be, definitely not the most organized person, but it's definitely a skill, and it's definitely something that you've got to nurture and improve on. It's definitely very important.
Yeah.
So there's one, I don't know if it was brought up when I was out. It's kind of like a soft and a hard skill linked is writing. And I mean, like Helen said, in South Africa, almost everyone, the kind of reports are always in English, usually. So if it's not your first language, and even people that it is their first language, it's what I've noticed from not all, but a lot of students coming out of the university nowadays, it's not a big focus, is actual how you write. And I can't stress it enough, read as much as you can. And I tell all our junior staff when we have performance appraisals, it doesn't have to be scientific literature, it doesn't have to be journal articles, just read something. If you like reading the newspaper, if you like reading books, anything it helps with your English, it helps with your writing style. It's really important. Because if you're a senior person reviewing reports, it can become a nightmare if someone's grammar is really bad and you end up having to rewrite the report. So one of my best tips I can give is read as much as you can. And I know it's not easy sometimes, you have a lot of time in the world today, but instead of sitting on your phone, watching TikTok or whatever, I've never been on TikTok in my life, but yeah, find a book to read, something interesting, it'll trust me, it will really help with your writing skills and style.
Yeah, and I mean, take the opportunity of being in university and writing the reports and essays that you have to. Obviously now it seems like a task, and you don't want to do it because who wants to do homework and all of that. But use it as the opportunity that it is to actually better yourself. So I mean, I remember in my second year of university, I wrote an essay, and the lecturer came back to me to tell me that I completely botched the referencing. And referencing, especially in the scientific community, is a huge thing that you have to actually be able to do properly. And from that one essay, I made it my mission. I was going to learn how to reference. I was never going to have another essay where referencing was going to be an issue. The other things that they would comment on, but I wasn't prepared to let that be an issue for me and get marked badly because I couldn't reference properly. So I used that as an opportunity to better that particular aspect of my writing, and it's never been an issue since. So, as that one example, pick the different things that you read the comments and the things that your lecturers are pointing out, actually, take notes of them and better them. It's not just that you've done something wrong. You need to actually look at it, and that maybe sounds silly and obvious, but that is why you're there. You're there to learn and to make the mistakes so that you can learn from them and not make them again.
Okay, thanks, Gemma. Yeah, that's definitely true. So I see that our time has run out now. It's already 6 o'clock. So we're going to probably call it there, but I do just want to get to this question from Michelle. Unfortunately, with the technical difficulties earlier, we haven't spoken as much about women in science as maybe we had initially planned. So yeah, I think it might be good to just finish off with this question from Michelle. And I know Annalisa, you said you might.
Yeah, if I understand your question correctly, Michelle, let me go through stage by stage, but is it assumed that it would be too dangerous to go, or is there a documented response that women do not want to go? So I'd say that this is, it's not a documented response, and it isn't, in some companies, it isn't assumed that it is too dangerous. So I'd say this is a company-based perspective of whether they think women are fit to go to field and whether not. I know at Umvoto we are seen pretty much as equals, but I know in other companies they do kind of shy out from letting women go to the field. And in that instance, I think it's better to have your voice heard and say, look, I think that I am equipped to go to field. I want to go, this is what I'm interested in, I can do A, B, and C, and promote yourself in that sense. I've been in different places or had experiences where, you know, it was just easier to send the guy out, or it seemed like we have to add 2 of you, which is double the expense to make sure that you're safe. So in those instances, like gauge and speak to your supervisors. It isn't a documented thing, but it is a company culture kind of thing. And when there is money for more than one person, are women given the opportunity to go? Like I said, it depends on each company and their viewpoint. Obviously, you have to promote what you're going to bring to field and that you are skilled to do the work, or you want the experience and you can be an asset in the future to do this kind of thing. So I think that would answer that question. I feel that there is more to unpack here regarding women in exploration and how to support them. So I keep on going back to this comment. I've had experiences where I've been in interviews and some of the guys say, look, you're a woman, you're not good enough for fieldwork. And this is genuinely my experience. I've had other experiences where they've been like, great, you can go to the field all by yourself as a woman with no reception, supervising the rig. So it's really company based. And I think if you feel at some point that there might not be budget, but you want to go, motivate that your safety is important. Motivate that these skills are important for the project. I think that is very important for whoever's managing it. So kind of, yeah, feel it out and have your say, but it's not documented anyway. It's kind of, you gotta gauge. That helps.
The other side of that is if there's a situation where you actually don't feel comfortable, then you need to speak up.
Yeah.
So if you're a woman and you've been sent somewhere and you actually don't feel that it is the right place for a woman to go, whether it's in the Western Cape or if it's in another country, you actually have to say something, because they're not going to know, they're not going to assume that you know, have those feelings.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. And ultimately it comes down to communication.
Yeah.
You need to voice whichever of the concerns you're having.
I think that in general is a good thing. Even as a man, when you are out in the field, you can be in some dodgy situations if you're not comfortable in there. Rather go with your instincts. I mean, the job can always be done at another time if you get security. But your life isn't worth risking you or anyone.
I mean, I think the way, I mean, from a management point of view, the way we work is we won't send someone, if we win a project or even go for a project, we won't send a person to a place that we're not comfortable going ourselves. So we're not comfortable doing work in places that are active war zones, for example. I know it sounds funny, but there's a, in geology field, that's kind of some of the projects you might, that there's work there. So we probably won't do work in Somaliland, for example. Say, where else is there issues? I'm sure, like, say if there's a job in Yemen, we probably won't, we won't go Ukraine, for example, like, because we have worked in Eastern Europe and desktop there, so we worked in Kazakhstan and stuff, but we will not send someone that us as directors are not willing to go ourselves. So that counts for women and men.
Yeah.
So,
Great. Thanks, guys. I think we don't unfortunately have more time for questions. But thank you all for joining us. Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed the webinar. I think that yeah, there's a lot more to discuss here. And sorry if we couldn't get to your question. Yeah, I think our hope is that, especially as students, people entering the workforce, that yeah, it's just been informative and that maybe you've had some questions answered. And yeah, ultimately this, I know all of us here, we really love the field that we're in, and it's a very inspiring field and a very challenging field. And so yeah, I really hope that you guys have all enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you. I will be sending out a follow-up email just with some helpful information and links that you guys might appreciate. So yeah, thank you for joining us. And thank you to Helen. I'm so sorry that we had technical difficulties. We'll see what we can do about maybe recording your talk and maybe sending it out to everyone. That might be a useful thing to do.
Yeah, certainly. That's a really good idea. Sorry, everyone. I have no idea what happened, and Zoom just crashed and I carried on talking because I couldn't see I just couldn't, you know, on presenter view, I could just see the presentation. So I had no idea it had crashed until the end. Yeah, sorry about that.
Great. Thank you, Helen.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks all. Bye.
cheers.